boys and girls. I am so happy to be reading with you today. Our book today is called George and the Dragon. What in the world do we think a book about George and the Dragon could be about? Let's get started reading to find out about George and the Dragon. This is the tale of St. George and the Dragon. It has been told for over 15 centuries. It takes place during a time called the Dark Ages, when kings ruled the land, wizards cast spells, and monsters roamed free. The Queen of Fairies had taken young George in as a baby. The fairies raised the child to grow up brave and strong, calm, courteous, quick, and clever. They taught him to be a noble knight. At last, the time came when George was old enough to seek his destiny. The Queen of Fairies called him to see her. "Your journey starts today," she told him. "You have many adventures ahead. Your quest will take 6 years. Wow. The Queen of the Fairies spoke kindly to young George. "The world is filled with monsters and battles. You'll meet kings and paupers and wizards and witches, evil princesses and kind princesses," she said. George was so sad to leave the land and the fairies, but he was not afraid. "Always remember one thing," the Queen added, tapping George's silver battle helmet. "Your greatest weapon, George, is your brain." Then George set off. He traveled for weeks. As he approached Selene, he noticed the land changed from lush and green to dark. There he goes, off on his journey. It seemed the ground had been crossed by fire. There was no grass, only the darkest mud. The trees were bare, black, and foul stench filled the air. As George walked through this stark land, he did not see anything living. Then George finally saw a castle in the distance, a high, solid walls enclosed castle and the small city around it. The gate was closed up tight. When he got closer, he saw a young lady. She crept quietly through the gate and up to George. "Have you no sense?" she asked. "You would do well to leave here now and never return," she said. "But I am brave knight here to help you," George whispered. "Alas, sir," the woman replied, "you are but one man. I fear you cannot help us." George looked at her and said, "It is my destiny. I will do all I can, even if it costs me my life." "I am Princess Sabra," she said. "Come with me." Sabra explained why the kingdom lived in such fear. A fearful dragon had lived in the kingdom for many years, she told him. The horrible beast had ravaged the land and eaten all the animals. Hopefully King George can help. Princess Sabra told George that the people had moved within the castle walls for protection. The dragon had promised to come through the castle walls for his breakfast when the animals were all gone, she told him. "We gave up our last 2 sheep this very morning," said the princess. "Tomorrow he will eat us." "Then my timing is perfect," said George. They came to a cave in the dark forest where a wise old hermit lived. Sabra and George crept up to the old hermit, who stared into his fire. He did not turn to even look at them. The old hermit. Suddenly the hermit spoke. "Long ago, it was told 2 brave knights would come to know the only way to save the nest. The serpent's weakness is in his breath," said the hermit With those words, an ancient hourglass appeared to their feet. George did not understand. He asked the strange man, but the hermit would speak no more. When George and Sabra left the cave, it was already dark. They knew they must hurry to the dragon's lair. They had to get there while the dragon slept. It was their only chance. Look at that. You see the dragon? They gotta be pretty scared if I was George. The hermit speaks in puzzles, Sabra said. What do we do with the ancient timepiece? George remembered that the Queen of Fairies had told him his best weapon was his brain. He studied the hourglass. The hourglass will lead us, George whispered. We must wait until all the sand had dropped through. The smell as they approached the lair was horrible. George and the princess used George's shield to protect themselves from the dragon's fiery snores. Suddenly, the dragon stirred. The dragon raised up, rubbing his eyes. George watched the dragon rise, and the very last grain of sand dropped through the hourglass. In that moment, the dragon yawned a great fiery yawn. Now, George! Sabra shouted. George threw the hourglass into the dragon's mouth. The hourglass broke apart on Dragon's tongue in a cloud of icy mist. The dragon was really angry now. It looked down to see George and Sabra ducked behind the shield. The dragon reared back to hurl a fiery blast at them, but only one soft snow came from its mouth. The dragon took a deep breath and tried again, but its mouth was shut tight with ice. The dragon jumped into the deep, warm lake to keep from freezing from the inside out. That dragon never bothered another soul. Some have seen him coming up from air on occasion, but only on very warm nights. The dragon would not dare stay out of the warm water too long for fear of becoming a giant icy statue. George and Sabra had saved the kingdom, and it was Sabra who was the second knight that the old hermit had spoke of in his strange riddle. There goes the dragon to the warm water. The two arrived at the castle to cries of joy and triumph. The grateful people of Silence were no longer prisoners in their own kingdom. The king offered George all he had in thanks, but George wanted no payments indeed. I have more adventures left to face. George told the people they are my greatest reward. George shared the story of the Dragon of Silene to anyone who asked along his journey, and it's still told today as an example of bravery. Wow, George had to be very brave to go against that dragon. What is something that you have done lately that was very, very brave? Oh, wow. I love all your ideas of what you've done that's brave, because being brave takes a lot of courage. Alrighty, boys and girls, I'll talk with you very, very soon. Bye for now.